Members of council, please take your seats. This meeting is now resumed. I would take the release of member holds. Please put your name under request to question staff. I've also reviewed a number of urgent motions to be added to the agenda. So, please take your seats. All right. So where were we? Councillor, I don't know. Councillor Holiday, yes?
Thanks, Speaker. I can't actually re-put my name on the list, but that's okay. If you will indulge me to try again on members' motion on page 7, MM 32.21 report request on the feasibility of banning the display/use of the Confederate flag on any city property and events. I see that Councillor Shan is in the room here, and I'd be happy to release that with an amendment.
And who's moving the amendment?
Me, but I guess, but I will give Councillor Shan full credit for all of his help, and Councillor Mihevik.
So is there an
Councillor Shan.
amendment?
Yeah.
Council, okay.
Well, I do. I have the amendment with the clerks.
Okay, do they have it?
Yep.
Okay, there's the amendment on the screen. Okay, on page 7, MM 3221, there's an amendment by Councillor Holiday. All in favor? Carried. Recorded vote.
I don't think so.
There might be on the Batmobile, some old sticker.
We'll give them a rule to deal with it.
Don't you know we have a Dukes of Hazzard Day once a year?
And we whistle Dixie.
I actually
You get the
have,
van, the Civil War van.
I actually have a general reason.
Oh, do you?
Councillor Perruzza, please.
Yeah.
Councillor Mihevik, please.
Lost Hog. Wasn't he the sheriff?
That's because you,
Was he the sheriff? No.
buddy, you know.
Councillor McMahon, please.
Lost Hog's name was
Councillor Layton, please.
Catherine Rock, Daisy, Bowen.
in our
Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks.
Well, I remember the name.
Councillor Perks, please.
The motion carries unanimously, 36 in favor.
That's the item.
Pardon? Okay, thank you. Mayor Tory?
Yes, Madam Speaker, two to release with a short comment. The two are on page 5, TE 26.63, and page 6, TE 26.69. I'll just say that in the case of 26.63, which is Adelaide and Duncan, it's for 6 months, though I think it's going to go on longer, and so we're going to sort of deal with it as best we can. And the other one is going to be quite a lengthy period of time for the construction of a very big building. So I'm not entirely happy with these, but I'm going to release them on the basis that for the moment it's the best we can do. So there we are.
Okay, thank you. So on page, come on. Page 5, T2663. All in favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Palacio, please. Councillor Mihevik, Councillor Fillion, Councillor DiCiano, Councillor Fletcher, please, and Councillor Crisanti, please.
Councillor Bailao, please. Councillor Wong Tam. Councillor Perruzza, please.
Councillor Fillion, please.
Councillor Perks, please.
The item carries 33 to 4.
On page 6, T 2669, the mayor is releasing. Recorded vote.
Councilor Perruzza, please. Councilor DeGiorgio. Councilor Layton.
Councilor Behevic, please. Councilor Fletcher, Councilor Grisanti,
Councilor Carmichael Greb, please.
Mayor Tory, please.
Councilor Davis.
The item carries 32 to 5.
Councillor Bylaw.
Yes, ma'am. On page 6, CC 32.7, I have a motion that I worked with staff.
Okay, hold on. The mayor has an interest on this?
Yep, that's why he's outside the,
Yeah.
yep. No, go.
No, stay.
No, stay outside. Stay out.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm releasing with the attached motion.
Okay, so Councillor Bylaw is releasing on page 6, CC 32.7, 158 Sterling Road, with the attached. On favor, a recorded vote.
Councilor Perruzza, please. Councilor DeGiorgio. Councilor McMahon. Councilor Wong Tam, please.
Councilor Grisanti, please.
Councilor Carmichael Greb, please.
The motion carries unanimously 36 in favor.
Item as amended. Oh, that was the item. Thank you. Councillor Cressy.
Oh, no, it's okay.
No, it's okay, we already did it. Pardon? Councillor Cressy, no? Oh, okay. Councillor Carroll.
Did Councillor Ainsley was going to release a hold to me?
Yeah, and I'm willing to give it to release and give it to Councillor Carroll.
So on page 4, PW 23.8, free-floating car share pilot and interim policy, I have a quick referral motion. If I can just speak briefly to it, you know, it's clear that the interest and the need for further work on this is really pocketed among certain councillors, certain areas. And so I'm moving that we refer it back to the General Manager of Transportation. Report back will come in a very short couple of meeting cycles, but that way we can actually complete the agenda tonight if we really think about it.
So
I have moved a motion, Madam Speaker. I don't know if you're taking editorial comment. I don't know if you want to give the microphone to the councillor or just take my motion.
No, I'm just listening. So you moved the referral motion, so I'm just asking, do anybody want to continue to hold it, or we're going to be voting? Okay. Councillor Carmichael Greb. Okay. All right. Let's put it back on the screen then. A referral. This is on page 4, PW 23.8, free floating car share pilot. Okay, recorded vote. Councillor DiCiano? You want a recorded vote? Okay.
Won't be long. Won't be long. It's a couple of seconds.
Councilor Grisanti, please. Mayor Tory, please, when you're seated. Thank you.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The referral carries 30-7.
Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hopefully, page 5, NY 24.19, hopefully, in interest of finishing tonight, there's a technical amendment on this one. Pedestrian safety corridor. No.
Question on that.
Just finish.
All right. Thank you. Okay, please. Please. Councillor Carmichael Greb, members motion 3252 on the libraries. Did you want to move that?
Please.
Move it?
Yep.
On favor, carried. Recorded vote. It's the members' motion that was just circulated. It was circulated before. Pardon? Okay. Okay, we'll display it. There. Is everyone okay with it? Recorded vote.
Councillor Palacio, please. Councillor Fletcher. Thank you.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor Perks.
The item carries unanimously, 37 in favor.
Councillor Wong Tam, members motion 3253. Okay. Councillor Wong Tam, you're going to move it?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move the recommendation.
On favor? Carried. Councillor Bylaw, members motion 3254.
Huh? What? Oh, introduction, yes.
Oh, yes, it's, we need a vote. We need a vote to reopen it first, right? Okay. Recorded vote.
Councillor Perks, please. Councillor Perruzza, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong Tam, Councillor Layton, please.
Councillor DiCiano, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Filion, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Crisanti, please.
The reopening carries unanimously, 37 in favor.
Okay. On the item, on favor? Carried. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On page 7 at the bottom, MM 32.26, request a report on the impacts of mandatory cross-ice, half-ice hockey. I can let this go if you give me 30 to 45 seconds for a brief comment.
30. Go. Hold it. Okay, go.
Okay, I don't use a lot of time up here, Councillor Mahalik. So this is a decision's come down by Hockey Canada and the OHF, the Ontario Hockey Federation, for the 6-year-old to start playing on half-ice hockey, where a barrier will be put in the middle, and then the little guys will play and the little girls will play on half and half. I talked to Janie Rohawk. We have no idea who's buying these barriers, who owns them, who puts them out on the ice, who takes them off the ice. Can you rent half-ice sheets of ice off the city? We don't know. I asked Janie, I've asked all our park staff. No one has any idea what's going on. This is simply to come back to find out what is happening, because all the organizations are kind of in the dark on it and think we're in the dark on it. So it's information to come back on how this is all going to work with our city rinks.
Thank you.
Good work, Councillor.
On favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Robinson, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor Lee.
The item is adopted 34-3.
Councillor Fragadakis.
Well, I was wondering if I could seek leave to introduce a motion without notice on a TLAB hearing.
I don't know if we have it yet. Do we have it yet?
I see 30 people in the chamber. I was trying to help.
Okay, Councillor Fragadakis.
Okay, great. It's urgent. The applicant has appealed the Committee of Adjustments decision to refuse the variances.
Okay, on favor? Carried. Councillor Cressy.
Speaker, I was wondering if I could move a motion to complete tonight. By my count, we have 13 or so items remaining in it. We still have an hour. So extend to 9 p.m. Could I move a motion to extend to 9 p.m.?
Yeah, we have a motion by Councillor Cressy to extend to 9. On favor? Carried. Okay, our next item is on page 4, PW 23.1. Oh, sorry. Councillor Shiner, Councillor Hart, can you introduce a motion? Councillor Hart.
Oh, 13. Where is it?
Councillor Hart,
Yes.
here. Can you move, you seconded that motion for Councillor Shiner. Can you move it?
Yes, Speaker, I'd like to move the
You
motion
introduce it?
that Councillor David Shiner be permitted to add to the agenda of today's meeting an urgent motion without notice concerning 500 Cummer Avenue,
You don't have to read
et
it.
cetera, et cetera.
Thank God. On favor? Carried. Okay, page 4, PW 23.1, number of contracts. Councillor Davis. Do you have questions to staff?
Going to ask questions of staff.
Pardon?
And I apologize to Mr. DiGironimo. He
So
was
what are
here
you
for some
doing?
time. I'm going to speak.
Okay. Counselor Robinson, questions?
So in...
Put your
Okay,
name
thank
up there
you.
if you want to
Yeah,
ask questions.
Yeah, I will, but where do I
Counselor
go?
Robinson, you want to ask questions?
Well, yeah, just the other side. In anticipation of maybe what Councillor Davis is going to ask about, I just want to ask the age-old question about the private side and the legalities around the private side so that we're clear on this issue.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the contract that's being asked to be assigned right now is dealing with the city-owned services, so from replacing services from the water main to the property line, the shut-off valve, and it is not dealing with the privately owned portion of that service lateral, which will run from the property line into usually the basement and the meter in the home, and that's the private side.
So the private side is funded by or paid for by who?
Through you, Madam Speaker, the private side is private property, so it's the responsibility of the homeowner to pay for any upgrades or replacements of that service.
And if somebody was to ask, a councillor was to ask that we start funding or paying for that side, what would your response be?
Through you, Madam Speaker, we reported to Council on that on several occasions, and with respect to funding the private side, we had recommended against giving funding to it. There was a report on arranging a loan program for homeowners. That was presented to Council with recommendations for approval, but Council did not accept the loan program.
Okay, so the private side's paid for by private property, but you take care of everything else. From that point on that you described, you take care of all that piece of the property.
Yes, Madam Speaker, all of the city-owned infrastructure, which would be contained in the road right away, would be the responsibility of Toronto Water to maintain. And the only other thing that we own beyond that would be the meter itself. And the City of Toronto then owns that meter and is responsible for the repair or replacement of the meter.
And upkeep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Davis.
Thank you. Mr. DiGeronimo, if I understand what's before us, is we're transferring a contract from one company to another, yes?
Through you, Madam Speaker, that's correct.
And
there's one company's purchasing another company.
Yes.
And they're asking the contract with the city to be assigned to the new company being created.
And on page 5, there's a list of the contracts that this company had. The company that's purchasing and renaming the other company, UFCI, Capital Infrastructure Group, this is a list of contracts they have had with us?
Through you, Madam Speaker, that's correct. The existing company that the contract is in place with right now and will be assigned if this recommendation is accepted, had previous contracts with us without outstanding warranty obligations.
This is UFI.
So we've documented UFI.
Okay.
So we've documented those, and as part of the condition of assignment, we are requesting that they...
No, I didn't ask about the
sorry?
warranty. I only have a short time. Of the contracts to date, how many of them have done private side water replacement and entered into agreements to ensure that the pipes were replaced on both the private and the public side at the same time?
Through you, Madam Speaker, not sure how many. There's only one company in front of us, so has this company...
Yes, has this
company done private side work? They have done some private side work, but we don't track whether they enter into agreements with private homeowners or not, so I don't have that data.
I seem to recall there was a motion from Councillor Shiner, I wish he were here, asking you to develop a system for identifying when the private side replacements were being done as well. So have we done that? I think I saw service cards that had that information on it.
Through you, Madam Speaker, we did report back on one of our annual lead mitigation strategy updates where we did look at that issue, and we found that trying to track private side information would be problematic, as the data that is very poor right now, and the systems aren't in place to track when a homeowner chooses to proceed. What we do track is when we do work on the city side.
Would you be surprised that I got the information on the most recent contracts that were done in my ward, and that 11 services were replaced and 1 was done on the private side out of 11? But I won't, that's a rhetorical question. And I
Not
will just
surprised.
leave
We
that.
would have a record of it, but we don't track it and report it.
Also, you noted the most recent report. I see that 1,600 replacements were done, even though the budget target was 5,000 in 2006. Are we replacing the lead service at the rate that we were hoping to achieve? And how are we going to ensure that the private sides are getting replaced when we know the public health position is very clear that both should be replaced, and preferably at the same time?
Through you, Madam Speaker, we did provide a report at last Public Works meeting where we provided those updated numbers. And for the past 2 or 3 years, we have not hit our target of 5,000. It's been below that. A lot of that is driven by the capital program. So the capital program is really the program where we were trying to do about 3,000 services a year. And we have not been replacing as many water mains in the older area where lead services exist over the last few years. So there has been a lesser number.
Okay,
With
so
respect to the second part, where you said, what are we doing to make people change out? We have an advertising campaign that we work with Toronto Public Health, and we target homeowners, particularly the at-risk groups, to make sure they know that we encourage the full change out of lead services.
I have another question, Mr. DiGeronimo. The contract before us, you have said that we cannot require a contractor to even offer to do private side replacements. So in fact, many contractors are not doing it at all. So I'm wondering why we could not request, and you could actually request that this contractor in particular
Your last question.
take on doing and offering private side replacements.
Through you, Madam Speaker, we've reported on that also on several occasions, where the city cannot compel a contractor who we engage on our behalf to enter into a third-party agreement with a private party. What we have included in our contracts are provisions for the contractor to provide cost estimates, and we've laid out how they do that for the homeowners. That's embedded in their contract, as well as instructions how to work on private property if they do engage in that third-party transaction. So we have included that in that contract that is being assigned, and all other contracts we have dealing with lead service replacement.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'm just going to go back over that again through you, Speaker, to Mr. DiGeronimo. And it just has to do with the private side and trying to make sure that those who are having their streets ripped up, their front yards, their rights-of-way ripped up and put back together again over a long period of time, also have an advantage to have their lead pipe replacement done at the same time as a customer service option. Did I hear you right to say that we cannot put in a contract when it's bid that that contractor must offer that as part of the service?
Through you, Madam Speaker, that's correct. That's what I said. We cannot compel them to enter into a third-party contract with private individuals. What we can do is encourage them to do that, and which we do in a contract.
My language is very clear. They must offer the service. They must offer it. We can't compel the person to accept it. So I think I'm going to ask legal about that, or somebody from purchasing about that, a city manager, Mr. Rossini, so he gets to answer a difficult question. prior to his last, just ticking down at your last meeting. Would you agree that it doesn't seem reasonable to citizens that having large-scale, probably multi-million-dollar operation with people that are changing a pipe halfway across their lawn, because most of it is the right-of-way, that it cannot be extended, or that contractor should not have to offer to complete that, and the homeowner would pay for that?
Through you, Madam Speaker. I know from a business sense this sounds like something very simple that we should do, but there are operational issues, as Lou was alluding to, and there's risk issues and liability issues of a company that we have contracted to work in the road right-of-way to do work on the private property, and then who would be liable to that?
No,
that's something that I think we would need to take away and look at.
They're not doing it for us. They would be contracted by the homeowner.
I understand.
So that the homeowner, and one contract, you might be aware, where it says that they can offer it if they would like to offer it, but they chose not to offer it.
That's the current
Therefore, from a safety point of view, there are many people now that simply can't avail themselves of the most simple service to upgrade their lead. So it is not a liability issue if it's a separate contract for that other part of the work.
The way we've currently structured the program, it is not a liability issue because it's up to the willing buyer, the property owner, and the contractor to come up to mutual terms. There are liability implications, I understand.
What are they?
If we compel somebody, if we compel a company to do that, and I think that's a question.
What are those liability issues, please?
If the city selects a contractor and requires that that contractor offer services to members of the public, should something go wrong, the city would be a party and could be found liable. That's a very, very general statement because we don't have any specific facts here, but I can tell you that there are some liability risks. With respect to the matter that's before council today, if council were to add that as a term to the contract and require the company to whom it's being assigned to accept it, there would be a significant risk because, like most contracts, this one contains a clause which says that the city must consent to any assignment but cannot withhold its consent unreasonably, and because it would be a significant change to the contract scope,
but I'm asking about
it would be arguably
in general.
Unreasonable. So
I'm asking in general, is there not a waiver? Is there not some process that can be set in place where good citizens who are having their lives disrupted for a month, maybe 2 months, with all the sewers being replaced, everything being replaced, including the lead pipe halfway to their house, could sign a waiver with that same company to say, city's not liable, I understand. That is impossible from a legal standpoint.
No, I'm not saying that at all, Councillor. I'm
That
just
was your
identifying
last
that there would be
question.
liability issues.
Could we report back on development?
Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Speaker. I just want to make sure I got this crystal clear so that we all get this Mr. DiGeronimo. I just want to understand I got this terminology right because it's technical. Private side, whose land is the private side? It says private.
Through you, Madam Speaker, would be the homeowner that owns that land.
So it's private property. So just like we don't cut private grass, we don't plow private snow, we don't install private driveways, we don't serve private pipes into the house.
That's correct. The water services and the drains are owned by the homeowner, and any repair or replacement would be the responsibility of the homeowner. The only portion of infrastructure the city owns beyond the property line would be the water meter, and that under municipal code we continue to own and we'll deal with that.
So that's like a device.
It's a device and it's the cash register to measure the...
Right, and for good reason we own it because we wouldn't want to rely on private data, we'd want to rely on ours.
Correct.
So for the same reason we're discussing the pipes under the ground, does the city ever get into deals where we're going into the house and changing the pipes in the wall? Or maybe the valves? I know the brass sometimes contains lead. Do we get into that business as well? Or is there a good reason why we don't?
Through you, Madam Speaker, no, we do not get involved with private plumbing matters.
So my rights today as a property owner, I live in a bungalow, and there's this imaginary line across my front lawn that's the difference between the road right-of-way and my private land. I guess that's the demarcation point.
That's correct. It'd be your property line, and usually the shut-off valve, if you're in a single-family home, or
Right.
will be on the property line. Not always, but it is the property line.
If I don't pay my bill, I guess you could go and shut that valve off and stop the water flow onto my private property.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the power does exist within the municipal code, but it's very rarely used. I think it's been only used once.
But in theory, that's what you can do, because that's where the city ends and the private land starts. So in theory, my house was built in the 50s. I'm going to assume there's not lead in there because I think we tested it. But if I decided I didn't like the pipe underneath my private land, can I change it at my will?
Through you, Madam Speaker, yes, you can, and you would just have to go through Toronto Building, apply for a plumbing permit, and because it is private plumbing under the Ontario Building Code, as opposed to the city's infrastructure, which is not deemed plumbing. It's part of our infrastructure.
Right, so the discussion I think we have today is that, if I can paraphrase it right, we do work on the public side of the demarcation point, and I guess as a customer service or an incentive, we find ways to make those contractors available to the private homeowner, but we keep out of the deal. That deal is between the private company and the private owner, and we limit ourselves. We put a firewall up because we don't really want to be working on private land and dealing with private interests of the private homeowner.
Through you, Madam Speaker, that's correct, to protect those contractual relationship and any liabilities that may arise when the work is completed. The city doesn't participate in that. What we do is put out the education awareness programs and trying to encourage the full replacement of lead services.
So last question, would it be in the city's interest, and ergo the interest in the water ratepayers and the citizens of the city, for us to limit our involvement in work on private lands, as a principle?
Through you, Madam Speaker, yes, I'd say it protects the public interest, as we will not be then drawn into any litigation that might arise if the work is done improperly and the homeowner is not satisfied.
Thank you.
I understand what you're saying, Councillor. And there-
Councillor Davis to speak.
They should have approved your report. Yeah.
Okay, members, we want to get finished by 9.
Speaker, I have a motion that City Council request the General Manager, Toronto Water, to undertake discussions with UFCI to request the new contractor to offer private side lead service line replacements on terms and conditions between UFCI and the private property owners. I know many of you are tired of hearing me talk about lead pipes in Toronto, but I'm not going to stop talking about lead pipes, because we continue to have tens of thousands of lead pipes in the City of Toronto, which is a health risk to vulnerable people, particularly pregnant women and young children. And if public health were here, they would tell you that. The preferred thing is to replace both the private and the public portion of lead pipes in the City of Toronto. We have had a program that has 2 components. One of them is we replace the city's portion of lead pipes when we are doing scheduled capital maintenance. And we are supposed to be replacing 3,000 pipes per year, and we are not. We are not meeting that target. We're not coming close to that target. We are supposed to be replacing 1,500 pipes under another program. The other program is called the Priority Program, or the On-Demand, where residents come and say, I want my pipes replaced. And the contracts that we have with the city to do the public portion have no provisions that say we require you not to do the work, but to even enter into discussions and make an offer. When I had my lead pipes replaced, the contractor dug the hole in the ground and did both the public and the private side at the same time, from the main to the house. And all of the public health information says that is exactly what we should be doing. Instead, we break the pipe. All the fragments from a broken pipe are being hopefully collected in the filters that we offer to people if we did the work first. I'm now learning for the first time it's a contractor who has to pay for the filter if they do it first. All my motion says is to Lou, please go and have discussions with this new contractor who is specifically doing priority replacements to see if they will at least offer to the people who are having their private sides done that they will do both at the same time. And I know Councillor Fletcher's experienced the same thing as I have, and other councillors, that over the last few years, the contractors are not offering at all to enter into any kind of agreements with property owners who want to have the private portion done at their own expense, because it slows them down. It's more complicated. We know that if somebody comes to your door and says 2 days from now we're going to be replacing your pipes, and oh, by the way, we now know it's lead, and you have 2 days to figure out if you're going to come up with $3,500 to replace your portion, and oh, by the way, we're not going to do it for you, even if you can come up with that $3,500 in the next 2 days. We had a proposal here on the floor of council that would have allowed us to offer a loan program. A set of staff recommendations supported by the CFO that we would help on the financial side. But you know what we're doing? We're not helping on the contract side. To put some pressure to make sure that those contractors are at least making proposals and offering to do it, putting bids in on the private portion side. They're not. And the safest way to replace pipes, is to do it at the same time, from meter to main, like they do in dozens of municipalities across North America. Dozens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doucette. Yes?
Based on the advice of our city solicitor, there would be significant risks and liabilities, that this motion is not in order, that it should not be before council, given that we heard from our city solicitor advising us that there are significant risks with this motion and liabilities to our city.
Yeah, I haven't seen the motion, so let me, Councillor Robinson, I'll speak to the solicitor once the motion is circulated, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doucette.
Speaker, I will only be a few moments. I do support very strongly the motion that Councillor Davis has put forward. In the last few years, I have had several streets where their water pipes, residents' water pipes, have been replaced. We look at a map, we see who has lead piping. At community meetings, residents go, okay, I've got lead piping. The city will help me on the city side. But when they say, well, can the contractor come and help me on my side? We go, no. It doesn't make sense. We have to work through the liability side of it. We have to work with contractors who can come in and do the private side while that hole is open. We are costing our residents far more money than necessary because everyone fills it in and then they have to get someone to come and dig it up again. So I do support the motion. We have to work around this. We have lots of lead pipes there we need to get replaced, and we have to help our residents to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'm just going to take this from the point of view, and I know we've had I know Councillor Robinson's concerned about risk, and I know legal has said we have to worry. And however, it does seem odd that there are other cities that actually manage to do that. Same thing, private side, public side, work all gets done at one time. And I simply want to take the viewpoint of our residents in the City of Toronto, that when we marshal all of those forces on a street, and I'll take Ivy Avenue for example, the entire street ripped up, dust, everything parked on the street, no parking overnight because it's permit parking, just meetings every week with the staff. A troubleshooter has there from ECS, or a troubleshooter who's hired, ECS troubleshooter and somebody from the contracting company. There are so many people there, and a little letter from that firm that says, we are not going to be offering you any private replacement. Residents, you'll have to phone yourself and get all that work done yourself for a piddly little, maybe $3,000, but it's picky. They have to go in and reopen the work that's been closed off by that contractor and undertake each one of them when we have a large contract underway, and those people could be doing that. And the point of view from the citizen is they simply can't understand how we can't figure out that that should be offered up as a service when millions of dollars worth of work is being done on that street already by a contractor. They cannot understand how we cannot figure that out. It's like those stairs, Councillor DiCiano. They couldn't figure out why we couldn't get some stairs built there in a difficult and unsafe condition. Lead pipes are unsafe. When you break the pipe, you're now allowing more lead to get into the water supply for that home. So we're creating an unsafe condition. I'm surprised people haven't gone to the Ombudsman and said, why haven't you figured that out? Because I don't think we're being very creative. We've got ourselves stuck in no, no, and no. We have not tried to get to yes. We're not saying everybody has to have that done. We're not saying the contractor must do every single one. We would say the contractor that's already there should offer that service. Is that not total common sense to everybody sitting in this room, councillors? Because it's total common sense to 2.5 million people who pay taxes in every single one of our wards in this city. And so to simply say, we can never do that, staff have told us we can't, it's illegal, I don't accept that. We can't simply say no, because for people who are experiencing this, no isn't good enough for them. So when the street is finished, if there were 80 homes and 80 of them with lead pipes, when we're finished, because it's just too complicated to now call the contractor and have them come, and they can't do it then, and they've got to wait for the crews to get off the street, etc., and who are they going to call, and who's bonded and who isn't. If after 80 homes, if there's only 10 that actually have new lead pipes, but 70 that have had their pipes broken and lead in their water system by our very contractor, there is something wrong. It just doesn't make sense. No matter which way you look at it, pick it up, turn it, it is nonsense. We have to find our way past this. And I commend Councillor Davis for not giving up, for knowing which cities actually offer this service in whatever way they do. And unfortunately, it's only a certain part of the city that has the majority of lead pipes. Lead pipes. So I really wish we could come together, try a way to figure this out for these residents who are who are having an unsafe drinking condition in their
Thank you.
homes.
Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll be very brief. Just in case there's a lack of clarity on what's before us, I'm going to draw a simple parallel. Thank you, Councillor Carroll, but I want to make sure everyone gets it. This discussion is exactly the same as asking our paving contractor that's paving the road along a public street and actually forcing them to go and knock on the door of the house and say, "Can I pave your driveway too?" That's exactly what this is. So why the city would want to get in the business of paving private driveways, I can't understand. It's the same reason of why we would want to get in the business of changing privately owned pipes. And the solicitor just told us that if we compel a contractor to go and offer this service, we are essentially a part of that agreement. I cannot fathom why we'd want to get into an additional piece of business. We have enough things to occupy our time. That homeowner can pick up the phone today and call a contractor and say, "Come change my pipes. I'm not happy with them," whether they're lead or not. In fact, if they can do it, they should do it right away if there is lead in there. So please think very, very carefully about the precedent that you are setting here and the door that you are opening. It is quite severe.
Councillor Carroll.
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, but the preface to my colleague before me was to make it clear, and in fact, it is less clear to me now. It seemed that my colleague did not understand that Councillor Davis's motion is not contemplating that we get into the business and pay for this. No, not at all. It's not offering that. Ironically, within this same term of office, in a previous item, recommended by staff, was the fact that we're now down to such a small amount of lead connections that are potentially poisoning babies and senior citizens, that we're down to such a small amount now. Like other municipalities, staff recommended that we should in fact offer a loan program to easily help residents at their own cost pay to purify and clean and get rid of the lead on their private side. And in that report, no one was asking the city to pay for it. Not ultimately, because we were to offer a loan program that was recoverable. Now we're not even asking for a recoverable loan. We're just asking that they offer, knock on the door and say, "At your cost, resident, would you like us, while we've got your front lawn ripped up, to get the lead out of your pipes?" So in neither of these two opportunities is anyone asking the city to get into the taxpayer dollar business of taking care of the lead that has the potential to poison people. But ultimately, municipalities are supposed to be addressing this issue and encouraging residents in whatever way they can to get it done. So if we're going to preface speeches with "let's be clear," then let's be clear about that. We get the council doesn't want to pay for this for property tax dollars, and no one is in fact moving a motion that we should do so. That's clarity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me try to clarify what Councillor Holliday was saying, because I think our colleague didn't quite understand. And I'm going to bring it down to make it a little more simpler. At this point right now, a contractor who's doing the work on our side can go knock on the door and ask that resident if they want the work done. They can do that on their own accord right now. If we compel, or through the contract, we tell the contractors that they have to go offer this service, our legal department has said that puts us at risk. There's legal liability. So we'll use a scenario where the contractor goes in, does the work, messes up, something goes drastically wrong, and there is the private owner comes and wants to sue. They not only will be able to sue the private contractor, but because we have compelled to the contract to ask, to force, or to tell the contractor to ask the private person, that person will be able to sue the city as well. And I can tell you one thing, and I don't know the number because I didn't have the opportunity to ask the CFO, when we look at the amount of
claims that have come into this city. They are in the millions of dollars a year, and we pay out millions of dollars. This will open us up to a lot more potential liability. That is why we cannot support this.
Good point.
Councillor Carroll, please. Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, I think, Madam Speaker, it's all been covered off. I just want to emphasize the numbers actually are trending in the right direction. Last year wasn't an excellent year, but this year is looking much better. And I also want to emphasize the fact that we do have free filters. That's a program that we run, as well as this education campaign that we heard our GM talk about. We do have a full-fledged education campaign around this, and educational awareness program that is actually very well orchestrated and operated. So I will add that to the comments that we've heard.
Thank you. Councillor Karygiannis.
Call the question.
Okay, the question's been called. All in favor? Carried. Recorded vote. We do want to finish the agenda tonight.
Councillor McMahon, please. Councillor Wong Tam.
Councillor Fragadakis, please. Councillor Ainsley, please. Councillor DeBaremaker, thank you.
That was the last speaker. There's no other speakers.
Councillor Layton, please.
Like, okay, bang, bang, bang. Why are we having a recorded vote when there's nobody else to speak? Oh, my God. Okay.
The motion carries 28 to 8.
There was nobody else on the list to speak. Okay, we only have one motion by Councillor Davis, recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor Wong Tam. Councillor Davis, please. Councillor Matlow.
The motion carries 19 to 18.
Okay, on the item as amended, all in favor, carried. Page 4, PW 23.9. Councillor Holland held it down, Eglinton Crosstown. Does anybody just want to move it? Councillor Crisanti, would you like to move it? Okay. All in favor? Page 4, PW 23.9. Councillor Holland held it down. She's not here. Page 4, PW 23.10. Addition of former municipalities' logos on street names. What? Nobody held it down. Okay. Okay, can I have some quiet, please? Please. On PW 20, we'll go back to it. PW 23.9, Eglinton Crosstown. Councillor Holland held it down. Okay, move approval. All in favor? Carried. Our next item is on page 4, PW 2310. Councillor Davis held it down. It's here without recommendations. It's the addition of former municipalities' logos on street name signs. So, are there questions? Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm going to ask some similar ones of transportation. Can someone tell me, have we finished changing all of the street signs in the City of Toronto?
Through you, Madam Speaker, no, we have not. We've gotten through about 25,000 of 80,000.
Of 80,000. So is that since amalgamation to the new street
Since
sign?
2007.
Okay, but and we hadn't done any changes in pattern since 2007, but so we're through 25%. Have I got it right that the report suggests that we will add a sticker as we change road signs over time?
Going forward, yes. If this is approved, we would add logos specific to former municipalities on street signs when we did the upgrade.
So in 10 years, we did 25 out of 80,000, so it's about 30%. So would it be fair to say that it's like a 30-year cycle to go and change road signs?
Through you, Madam Speaker, it would take a little while.
Empirically, so several decades. So there's a number in the report that says it's like $4,000, I think it is. Can somebody speak to the price that was given in the report? What are we getting for what is stipulated as the cost?
The logos. Through you, Madam Speaker, it's approximately $5 per sticker.
Okay.
So the costs in the report of $3,000 to $4,000 per year would be the 600 to 800 signs that we would do replacement on annually.
600 to 800.
In Scarborough and East York.
And forgive me, I'm sorry, what was the total number per year?
The 600 to 800 signs per year.
600 to 800 signs times $5, and forgive me, my mind is tired, I can't do the math. So it's $3,000, $4,000?
Correct.
$3,000 to $4,000, but that's actually $3,000 to $4,000 over 30 years. Because that's probably about the amount of time it's going to take to change all of the signs in East York. So what would the total amount be to change all of Toronto? I'm imagining quite a larger multiple. I know we're talking about East York here, but I'm going to bet that this council will probably open this up to all of the former municipalities.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the $3,000 to $4,000 per year is the total that it would cost to change out all the signs in East York and Scarborough. Per year.
Okay.
And the total cadence that we could do that replacement is 600 to 800 signs per year.
So the point being, if we go through a full-out initiative to put the former municipalities, we're talking a lot more money than a few $1,000s a year, spread over many, many decades to actually get this done. Now, would you foresee that there may be a risk or an influx of 311 calls of people saying, hey, there's a logo on that sign, I want one on my street too, come and upgrade my sign?
Through you, that's certainly possible. If people are interested in having those logos on their street signs, they may in fact contact through 311 or through staff.
Now, what will we do? Will we run about putting stickers on signs, or will we say, thanks for your request, but in the next 20 years we'll get to it when that sign gets up for age?
Through you, Madam Speaker, there's a couple of different ways we could do it, of course, as directed. We could do it by ward. We could have specific wards that are identified as wanting those logos on their street signs, and then when the request came in to update, we could make sure that a specific logo was identified to put on that sign.
Sorry, I'm not clear about that. Are you talking about then sort of projects that we would do? And I don't think that would be $3,000 or $4,000 a year. Sounds like a much more significant undertaking.
I'm speaking on an as-required basis. So how we would deal with the individual requests that came in to understand which had stickers and which did not.
Okay. Just on the general design of the signs, I know we took some care into A, a visual identity, but B, just a functionality of signs. At the end of the day, I'm trying to read the street. Whether we're in a car, on a bike, or walking, I mean, there's a need for clarity. Has anyone looked into what additional encumbrances, extra logos, colors, shapes, all of these kinds of things that get added to a road sign?
Through you, Madam Speaker. So in 2007, we did an accessibility review to upgrade our signage to something that was more visually accessible, and that's the standard that we have right now. We haven't done additional analysis to determine if there's any kind of degradation in the sign's effectiveness if it has more stuff on the bottom.
So you haven't done the analysis, but would it be a reasonable inference that we should probably have a look?
I think that as long as the sure. I think that as long as the street name was in fact kept intact and didn't have any kind of changes to the discrepancy between the light and the dark colors, so it could actually meet the visual requirements, then I think that's the most important component.
That was your last question. Yeah, over there. I know, but behind you. Okay. Councillor Robinson, questions?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually have questions for strategic communications on this issue. So do we have a corporate identity policy here at City Hall?
Yes, we do, Councillor Robinson.
Does this contravene that policy, or is this in line with that policy?
Sure. It does contravene the policy.
So what's being recommended here today contravenes our own corporate identity program policy?
Well, yeah, there isn't a recommendation in the report, but if council wishes to move forward with this, then we would make an amendment to the policy to incorporate this.
Why do we have a corporate identity policy? Or why do we have a corporate identity?
We have a corporate identity so that people can visually recognize the City of Toronto in everything that we do in terms of our programs, our initiatives. We have a logo and we have branding so that members of the public can recognize when it's a City of Toronto initiative.
Okay, so if this was put on the floor, a motion was put forward to move forward with this, it would contravene our policy?
That's correct.
Because we're one city versus the former cities that make up the new Toronto, or I guess it's an old Toronto now. Okay, thank you. And to transportation, my concern is the clutter on a street sign. I have no issue with former cities being on signs or wherever you want them to be, but on little street signs where we're already dealing with not very much space or area, is there potential for this to look very busy and cluttered?
Through you, Madam Speaker, we've come up in the attachment with a couple of different options. We already, as on request, put on logos of the poppy to recognize veterans, and so we have three components of the street sign: the top blade, which typically will have just the City of Toronto logo unless there's a BIA that wants to have their notation, and then the largest part and the one with the most contrast has the street name, and then the bottom blade is where we would accommodate the stickers for the former municipalities as well as the poppy when requested.
So you're saying there's images, i.e. poppies, on some of them. There's also maybe, I didn't ask Stratcom this, but not former neighborhoods, like I'll give an example, Leaside or Teddington Park, Downsview, thank you. So there's neighborhood/BIAs, there's former cities, and there's the street name, and there's images like potential poppies. Okay, and I'm not sure who should answer this. Does that contravene the city's policy to have a neighborhood listed like Leaside on the sign?
No, Councillor, it does not, because that is not a logo.
So it doesn't contravene the identity policy if there's a neighborhood listed, but a former city pre-amalgamation, it does contravene the policy.
That's correct, because the policy was approved by council in 2000.
Okay, that's helpful. And then my last question, because I do worry about, I get complaints now even from some of our own colleagues here about the signs having a lot of information, hard to read. You have to drive by a couple times to figure out where you're going. So my last question is, did you run this by the Toronto's Accessibility Advisory Committee to ensure that we had their comments on this proposal? Similar to Vision Zero, when we were developing that logo, it went to that committee for input.
We have not run it through the Accessibility Committee.
So that did not happen?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. And Councillor Kelly has
Thank
some
you, Speaker.
brief questions.
All the questions. Actually, I want to make a small point through my question, and that is, if you do consent to having logos on the street signs of the former local municipalities before amalgamation, you could have you could identify Scarborough, for example, East York, North York, Etobicoke, York. How do you identify Toronto?
You don't. You leave it out.
In other words,
You leave it out.
you know, you've got a Toronto sign with Toronto. In Toronto. Is that...
Was that a rhetorical question?
You know, if it doesn't strike you as bizarre, it does me.
Thank you. Those are the questions. Those are the questions. Councillor Davis, are you ready? You held the item?
Thank you, Speaker. I have a motion, which is the same motion that was tabled at committee, and that is to approve the addition of the former East York logo on replacement and new street name signs in the boundaries of the former borough of East York, and based on, and if I could ask the AV people to show it, at a cost of $1,000. The cost of $3,000 to $4,000 was for both East York and Scarborough. And I know there's going to be a subsequent amendment, a good amendment, that also will add other areas of the city, and I intend to support that one as well. But if it should fail, you will have before you this motion, which is to allow a small East York logo in the corner of signs that are being replaced. So I don't know if you are all familiar with East York, but East York is a very special place in this city. And I would challenge you to find another former municipality that has the sense of identity, the sense of, okay, I'll back up, I'm sorry.
You lost all the luck.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, I think I think Councillor Davis, who has the floor, is probably regretting using the word challenge.
Okay, just roll that back.
So we can have some order. We'll strike the word challenge and start again. Thank you.
And maybe I could have a bit of time added. Okay.
Let's not ask for the moon.
Let me just say that, let me say, from the seniors who continue to value that East York culture and that East York symbol, to the skateboarders who regularly paint the skate park with the East York logo, who put tattoos on their bodies of the East York logo. My son has one on his leg. So I'm telling you that there is a sense Speaker, I'm going to drag this out as long as possible.
Councillors, we are going to have to find order. I will have to continue to extend Councillor Davis's time. Thank you. Thank you. Councillors, I'll wait. I'll hold Councillor Davis's time for as long as it takes. East York. Councillor Davis, go.
There actually is a T-shirt called Beast York. And it is a young entrepreneur who is building on the East York logo. Excuse me, you know what it is?
Councillor DeBaremaker, I am going to restart Councillor Davis's time because I've lost track of how much time I've lost her.
Thank you.
So, Councillor DeBaremaker, I really have to ask. We're not going to move to that kind of heckling that goes on in other houses of government. And I admit that I egged it on a little bit, but we really do need to get back to work. Thank you. My ruling is we're getting back to work. Councillor Davis, 2 full minutes.
I mean, it is reaching this point of being disrespectful. So this has come from a request from the East York Historical Society, the East York Foundation, and several other East York leaders who would like to restore the East York logo on the signs. It's a very minor cost, so I don't believe cost is a factor whatsoever. The question is whether or not violating the so-called corporate identity policy is going to have a negative impact. And I would argue absolutely not. The logo of the City of Toronto will remain prominent on the signs. The logo simply provides both a geographic identifier that people respect and value and want to have there. Now, I don't know how it is that cities like London, New York City, and other large mature cities can continue to recognize their boroughs and not fall apart, and yet the City of Toronto can't. I think it reflects the heritage and it reflects the will of our community to continue to have their former municipality respected and reflected on their signs. Thank you.
I didn't even.
Councillor Robinson to speak.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I have a motion. If the clerk could kindly put it on the screen. I'm recommending that we just take 1 month, defer this item, and actually run this by our Toronto Accessibility Advisory Committee. That didn't happen. I think that's an important step with all brand development, with all initiatives like this one where we're changing things. I am concerned about clutter. I've had a lot of feedback saying I have a hard time reading the signs as we have an aging population and they're already enough, there's a lot of information, a lot of things going on these signs. They're important to really navigate our city. We need to have nice, clean signs. So I think this is an important step and we should defer this for 1 month and run this by this body that's there to do this type of thing, this type of work.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a deferral. So does anybody want to speak on the deferral? Okay. So we'll, okay, Councillor de Bearmaker, please. So we're going to vote on the deferral. Recorded vote. Yeah.
Councillor Ainsley, please. Councillor Mihevc, please. Councillor DiCiano. Thank you.
Councillor Carroll, please. No, I know, but you're yelling. Okay.
Councillor McMahon, please.
The deferral does not carry. The vote is 18 to 19.
Councillor Fragadakis.
Presente. Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. So I have a motion, if the clerks could put it up on the screen. And it's that council approve the addition of, well, actually, Councillor Mihevc, not yet. They're going to put that motion up first. You're supposed to assist me. That council approve the addition of the Legacy Cities logo on replacement and new street name signs within the boundaries of the Legacy Cities, based on the middle example in attachment 1 to the report from the General Manager Transportation Services, which Councillor Mihevc is now going to put on the screen. Vanna. City Council direct that it's estimated $10,000 to $12,500 cost for the Legacy City signs to be funded from within the Transportation Services operating budget. And if Councillor Vanna White, sir, thank you, could put that up. It's the middle one with the options with the poppy for those who have veterans on their street, and that one shows the East York logo, but it could be any logo. It's actually, I'm trying to be fair and allow other legacy cities to have it. They identify with their community, Scarborough, Etobicoke, York, North York, the old city of Toronto. Torontonians want to acknowledge their heritage and their history, and I think that's really the key to this. We, in fact, actually have a whole city agency devoted to heritage, and these former legacy cities are actually a part of that heritage. This is not a threat in any way to the corporate identity policy. People are not going to suddenly think they got lost or drove through a time warp. If people are driving around and can't find where they're going, it's probably because the trees are overgrown near the street signs and they can't actually see the sign, rather than that there's too much clutter on them. I actually think that the corporate identity policy is a little dated now. It's about 17 years old and probably needs a little bit of a refresh. So I'd ask you to support this motion. I know Councillor Burnside is going to be introducing a motion that will allow for councillors who don't want to be included into it to opt out, and he can introduce his own motion and have his 5 minutes. I'm not trying to take his 5 minutes from him, but like I said, this is really a question of equity, and I really want it for those who want it for their communities.
Councillor Burnside.
At Vic Park. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have a motion. We can put that on the screen, hopefully. So it would seem that there's been a bit of a grassroots effort by the good folks of East York, and a lot of work by a couple councillors. Unfortunately, when this situation came to light, there was some pushback in one of the areas of Old East York that I actually represent. So that's why I came up with this motion.
Councillor Karygiannis.
Call the question.
Question's been called.
Got her.
Yeah.
Speaker.
Speaker, excuse me, point of order.
Councillor Davis, point of order.
I want to understand the sequence of the motions. If the first motion...
We're not there yet.
Okay. Yep. I forgot to bring my little East York sign or flag. I was going to put it on my desk.
Show me your tattoo.
I don't have a tattoo. Oops.
Okay.
My son does. Speaker.
Councillor Mihevc, please. Councillor Palacio, Mayor Tory, please. Councillor Holliday, Councillor Ainsley, please.
Councillor Matlow and Councillor Thompson, please.
The motion to call the question does not carry. The vote is 23 to 14. The required two-thirds majority has not been achieved.
Councillor Kelly.
Speaker, I very strongly supported the amalgamation of the 7 municipalities that constituted Toronto back in the two-tier days. And I did so because I thought it was important to our future and you've heard me say this many times before, Speaker, we govern on behalf of the future. And it was important for us to get our act together so that collectively we could make a far more effective impact on the world and give a higher quality of life to our residents than if we continued forward under the two-tier system. I'm proudly from Scarborough, and I remember terrific hockey and football games against East York. But, Speaker, that's the past, and I don't want us to live there or dwell there. We should be doing everything we can to build a unified spirit, to create, in this international, highly competitive world, a Toronto brand. Now, if there's anything that I think we should reinforce and take special pride in, it's not the former municipalities, it should be the communities that we represent. In my area, I've had Bridlewood placed on street signs in the Bridlewood community. I would be pleased to add Agincourt or Wexford or Highland Creek, because that's where the focus should be, the communities in which we live. And Speaker, I would hope that you would see this issue as I do, because I think it's very important for us to continue forward in that unified spirit and at the same time reinforce the quality of life in our local communities. Those are the two things that should occupy our time, our attention, and our resources.
Thank you. Councillor Holyday.
Thank you, Speaker. If I may place my motion. Take another crack at this to receive the item. And I'll add a very brief comment. I won't don the cap in the chamber, but if everyone can see that, this is my vintage Etobicoke hat.
It would look good on a sign.
It has a vintage crest on it, and
it would look really good on a sign. There it is.
My colleague from Scarborough can wear it.
It's the Etobicoke subway.
You come to my office, there is the Etobicoke flag flying in many places, and I am very, very proud of the history of the area that I represent. In fact, it's a family history. And you're hard-pressed to find me without some sort of vintage piece of Etobicoke with me. But I am concerned about the practicality of this proposal. What I do worry about are the complaints that we get about the appearance of our city, sort of half-changed signs here, a broken sign over there. We heard from the transportation folks, for this to be rolled out, unless you want to dump a ton of money into it and do it all in one shot, which I can't believe there would be very many people supporting that cost. This is going to take years and years and years to change these stickers. It will create an inequity, and it frankly just won't look good. We'll just have these little logos popping up here and there, and we'll be the subject of criticism about, why isn't it being added to my street? Why isn't it being added to that street? Add that to the idea that, as Councillor Kelly just spoke about, is communities. In Etobicoke, we still refer to ourselves as being from Islington, being from Rexdale, being from New Toronto, Mimico. So there is a lot of history locked up into the former municipalities. And I can see the discussion even going to those former cities that created the municipalities that created Toronto, wanting to identify themselves in their own special way. I will put to the council that I think we should just leave this idea alone about the stickers, because it's going to be so hard to do it well. And I would remind councillors that your job is to actually represent the communities and represent their history. And it's the actions that you do here in this chamber that help support the history there. The example I used in the Public Works Committee was we had this discussion about parking on street. Well, one of the things that defines the community that I represent are kind of clear and unencumbered streets. So I really get my back up when people start talking about on-street parking. There's very good reason for that, because it is the culture and the identity of the area that I represent. Parks, another tremendously important thing to my community. So I put my heart and soul into trying to make those the best places that they can be and reflective of the way they were as I grew up. So it's your actions that I think are the most important. I would urge you to put your resources into that and not into a sticker campaign that will ultimately badly come off. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll vote on the motions in order. Okay, our first motion, shouldn't the receipt motion go first? Okay, so we don't have it yet, but it would be Councillor Holliday's receipt motion. We'll display it. Recorded vote.
Councillor Holland, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The motion to receive does not carry. The vote is 9-27.
Motion number 1 by Councillor Davis.
Speaker, this is what I want you to explain, if I could, on the point of order.
Well, we're voting on your motion.
If this wins, it does not make Councillor Fragadakis redundant. My understanding is that both would be in order and parallel.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Davis, motion first. Recorded vote, or we're okay? Recorded vote.
Councillor DiGiorgio, please. Councillor Wong Tam, please.
Councillor Crisanti, thank you.
The motion carries 27-10.
Motion 3 by Councillor Fragadakis. Recorded vote.
Councillor Wong Tam, please.
Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Mihevik, please.
The motion carries 28-9. Burns.
Motion 4 is redundant. Yes, it is. It is. According to staff, it's redundant. Yes, Councillor de Beermaker.
Madam Speaker, it was my understanding or the intent of Councillor Fragadakis when she moved her motion that Councillor Burnside's motion would not be out of order because it gives an opting out option to councillors. So it's a policy that everyone gets it, but if you wish to opt out, you can opt out. So I don't see them as being redundant.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I think that was the intent of the two movers. So I don't think the two movers see their motions as contrary.
So, Speaker.
Well, then I would ask the indulgence of the clerk to do the correct wording.
Okay, please. Well, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Burnside, point of order.
That being the case, could we open reopen Councillor
voted the wrong way.
Davis's motion, because I voted the wrong way.
Yes. I'll move. I voted in the, oh, yeah.
Okay, there's been a motion to reopen Councillor Davis's motion. All in favor?
Then you
Carried.
vote against it.
Okay, so Councillor Davis's motion, recorded vote.
So now you can vote no.
Very Pavlovian after a while. Must push button now.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The vote on motion 1 is 26 to 11.
All right. Okay, so that's it. Page 5, NY 24.19, pedestrian safety corridor, Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Ask you questions. I have a technical amendment.
Do you have questions?
No, because, oh, John has questions, sorry.
Do we have questions to staff? Oh, questions to staff. Sorry, Councillor Burnside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff, do we have any data? I know we're looking at reducing the speed from 50 down to 40 on Avenue Road. Do we have any data that the simple change in the speed limit reduces speeds on roads?
Through you, Madam Speaker, typically speed reduction is a combination of the posted limit as well as the design of the roadway. If the roadway is already designed for slower speeds and the speed limit doesn't correspond, reducing the speed limit typically helps with that, reduce speeds.
Okay, so but short of change, this is more of a general question.
Yep.
Short of changing the road design of whatever, any given road, would a reduction in the posted speed result in a reduction of actual speed?
Only if there was significant enforcement. Is that fair?
That's fair. Okay. Do we have any data in the City of Toronto where the reduction of speed, posted speed limit, actually resulted in an increase of speed?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. And could you then, my last question is regarding this whole process. At North York Community Council, I was under the impression that staff actually advised against reducing the speed. What is changed?
Why did they do that?
At North York Community Council.
Why did the staff advise against it?
Through you, Madam Speaker, there was a report that went to North York Community Council, I believe about a year ago, where a similar issue was discussed, and at that time there was no corollary with respect to design features or other recommended changes that are part of the recommendation going forward now. So as staff have continued to research the issues and the safety issues related to the number of schools that are on that section of Avenue Road, such as narrowing the lanes, staff support the reduction in speed limit now.
Okay, thank you.
Can I give you the real answer?
Thank you. Councillor Layton, questions?
Thank you. Just one question. Is there a correlation between speed of vehicles and fatalities with pedestrians?
Through you, Madam Speaker, there is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong.
Yeah, you said something very interesting. You said the reducing speed limits is only effective with substantial enforcement.
Through you, just to clarify, or design. So design and enforcement are the two elements that address the speed limit.
If you don't change the design and you just simple reductions of speed without substantial enforcement, you're not going to get a reduction of speed.
Not likely. I think if you put up watch your speed signs and you let people know how fast they're going adjacent to the speed limit, then sometimes you get some reductions in that
So we've been putting up 30-kilometer speed limits all over. We've been giving out 30-kilometer speed limits like you give out candy on Halloween. And my question is do you, and this is actually reinforced by what I hear in every neighborhood, not to reduce speeds because we don't have enough cops to enforce it. So my question is do you believe that all these speed reductions that we've been implementing, all these 30-kilometer speed zones, really makes a whack of good because the police can't enforce all the reductions in speed across the city?
Through you, Madam Speaker, so my understanding is those places where we've done speed reductions, the speed was out of line with the design of the roadway, and so we brought those two together, especially on local roads. And so what I'm suggesting is that if you don't do anything related to the design, and the design speed allows cars to travel at a much higher rate of speed, then the only way to try to manage that is through enforcement or a redesign of the roadway.
So what do you define as design?
Design meaning how wide the lanes are, how wide the roadway is, what the sight distance looks like, what kind of features there are in terms of deflection, either going up a speed hump is one way to reduce speed, or narrowing the road so that drivers...
So without those things...
That kind of design will help reduce
speed. So if that doesn't happen, then you're not going to get your speed reduction.
If your speed limit is way out of whack with the design speed of the roadway, then really the only way to try to make a temporary reduction is through enforcement.
Right.
Fair?
Thank you. Councillor Carmichael Greb to speak.
Thank you. I have a technical amendment. This is just to correct a bylaw that was changed with some Metrolinx changes, which is why it goes into Councillor Matlow's ward. This Avenue Road is a beast that I've been dealing with since elected. In the last several years, there have been 400 accidents between Eglinton and Lawrence, and there are 8 schools, daycares, and other child facilities. There are parks, very narrow sidewalks, and it is a commuter route. It's the only street, north-south street, that is open most of the time, 2 lanes at Eglinton. So we have lots of traffic going through. We've done speed traps with police and with students. We have caught people going 75 in a 40. So we need change to come to Avenue Road to keep pedestrians safe, to keep cyclists safe, to keep kids safe. And this is the first step to that. And I'm happy that we have finally come to this. I want to thank staff for all their hard work on this, because I had planning involved in this, transportation services, and everybody worked together to come up with a solution that hopefully will work and bring change to Avenue Road.
Councillor Burnside.
Just requesting your indulgence. I'm waiting for a motion.
Do you want to wait and, oh, okay.
Is that you? Thank you. So I will be supporting Councillor Greb's or the motion to reduce the speed limit. But my concern is that we make a lot of changes and we say a lot of things, and I'd like to actually see some data after the fact to corroborate what we think we're doing is a good thing. I'd like to actually see those results.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll, quickly.
Yes, very quickly, Madam Speaker. This is not a great time to gather data. anywhere near Eglinton Avenue, because it's not the real world right now. I have a theory about this sudden, these schools have been here for 100 years. But I can tell you that anywhere near Eglinton, from one end of the Crosstown project to the other end of the Crosstown project, drivers who have to get through it to get the kids dropped off, get to the other side of the Crosstown project and carry on down to work, are really starting to feel the pinch, are really stressed doing so. It's a struggle. And so on Avenue Road, which is technically a highway, it is technically a highway, it has begun to create a little bit of aggressive driving. And this is aggressive driving in an area that is just jammed with kids. There are all these schools here, and it's approaching Eglinton. So it's drop them off, get this done, get to the Crosstown, find my way across it through the construction site, and be on with it. I don't think you want to substantially change the actual design of this road, not substantially, because this is a temporary situation. But what's contemplated here is a safety plan, will allow us to hopefully mitigate what is going on right now, a lot of collisions, whether it's pick up and drop off around schools. But I don't know that, I'm sorry, there's a lot of chatter, and I can't tell if it's about what I'm saying or not, but it's sure as heck distracting. There's sort of calling around. Anyway, in terms of the data gathering, I don't think you're going to get real and meaningful data in north-south routes and anywhere right around the Crosstown area while it's ongoing as a construction site. It's Canada's largest infrastructure project. My residents would like a very robust and rigorous study of Victoria Park, of all of the ramps to the Don Valley Parkway, of Don Mills Road, of Leslie, of Bayview, and on to Yonge. They want every north-south route studied. The reason being, we're going through a very difficult time. And we could add Avenue Road to the list, except my residents aren't going over there very often. But every north-south route is a frustration right now, and it's being borne out in school zones. That's all this is about. But in terms of data, I think the best traffic study possible would be for us to really look at the impact of the finished Crosstown when it's done and make whatever design changes are necessary then, the true physical design changes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Layton, quickly.
Thank you very much. I'm just rising to speak against the last motion that was just made. In a city where we're trying to focus on our Vision Zero plan and actually implement pedestrian safety measures across the city, and we're told that it can't be done in 5 years because of lack of staff resources, why are we now going to put more staff resources to test all of those things, particularly on one tiny stretch of road that has seen so many dangerous accidents, that has so many schools and childcares, and we're actually saying part of our new countermeasures include some of these very things, creating school safety zones. We're just reducing the speed limit 10 kilometers an hour, and there's a direct correlation between the speed of vehicles and fatalities. We don't need to go back and check this after.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Tory.
I'll be very brief as well, Madam Speaker, just to say that I had the chance to go up with Councillor Carmichael Greb to one of the schools, Allenby School, that has 800 students, and I stood there with the police officers and actually was watching the radar. They weren't giving tickets, but they were really just trying to sort of demonstrate that people are speeding in places where they shouldn't be, and this is a school zone. It would be one of the first candidates I would recommend, I guess, to the Deputy Mayor's point, for photo radar when we're allowed to put it into school zones, because people are going at such speeds, and we saw them. There was northbound traffic, of course, in the morning because they're not in rush hour. They're going at such speeds, it is a tragedy, a huge tragedy waiting to happen. You know, with just dozens of kids on these narrow sidewalks and crossing the street, and there's a well-meaning crossing guard there, of course, but it's a tragedy waiting to happen. And so all of which is just to say that nothing is better than seeing this stuff with your own eyes, which I did, and I will be strongly supportive of what Councillor Carmichael Greb has brought forward here, and I commend her for doing the work on this, and I think it will make a difference, albeit whatever difference it makes. It's a positive difference in an area where there is a tragedy waiting to happen if we do nothing, and so I'll support it on that basis.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready to vote? Oh, sorry, Councillor Perks. Sorry, I didn't see your
Yep,
name.
I just want to make one very small comment. This came up when we were doing 30 kilometers an hour in the city of Toronto. There's an important enforcement aspect to this. If you are driving along at 60 and posted 50, you don't have much of a fine. If you're driving along at 60 and it's posted 40, it's a much heftier fine. So the enforcement incentive becomes much more significant, and therefore you do actually affect speeds that way. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the amendment by Councillor Carmichael Greb. All in favor? Carry. Did somebody say recorded vote? Oh. Councillor Burnside's motion? Okay. Do we want a recorded vote on that? Yeah.
Councillor Matlow, please.
Councillor Holland and Councillor Palacio, please. Councillor Fragedakis, when you're seated, please.
The motion carries 23 to 13.
Item is amended. Item is amended. All in favor? Carried. Recorded? Recorded vote.
Councillor Mihevik, please. Councillor Crawford. Councillor Robinson, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The item is amended, carries unanimously, 36 in favor.
Our next item is on page 5T 2625, 85, 87, 89, 91 Broadway. Councillor Matlow.
Madam Speaker, after a lot of back and forth with the other party, literally in the last hour, we arrived at a motion that the chief planner and I, along with our city solicitor, feel very comfortable moving forward with, and I believe may arrive at a significant improvement. So you'll see something on the screen in a moment. I'll read the first two just to give you an idea of where we're going. So number one, City Council will adopt the confidential instructions to staff attached to this motion. It was circulated to all of you. And the number two...
Councillor Matlow, I'm sorry, but you can't move that. Because it hasn't yet, because it hasn't been circulated.
Oh, I understood that it had been.
No.
So how would you like to go about
So
it?
let's hold it down until it's circulated. Okay, next is page 6. New business, CC 32.3, structural realignment of the Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer position. Councillor Fletcher, do you have questions? Hold on. Pardon?
No.
No? Does any, Councillor Crawford has questions. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question to the
City Manager, why did you make these changes?
The managers and I have been working to find a way of bringing more professionalism and expertise, even more professionalism and expertise to the city. And as we've been doing that, we've been trying to become increasingly intentional about both identifying our talent and making sure that that's brought forward, and making sure that we do that with an appropriate focus on diversity and inclusion. We want to do so in such a way that's deeply respectful of the authority of council. Both of these positions are, of course, mandatory council appointments, both the DCM and the proposal to create a separate CFO position.
So you will be bringing CFO, the candidates for review through a panel of councillors and then to council?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would propose that in the usual way we put together a panel. In this case, Councillor, I would presume it would be chaired by the Chair of Budget Committee, along with other committee chairs, to bring forward for review once we've had an opportunity to undertake a full and thorough recruitment and have a short list of appropriate candidates.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher, questions?
Yes, I'll just follow up on that. And the process that, since we moved to the new model a number of years ago of Deputy City Manager and CFO, you're looking to have discrete positions for each of those so that each gets the attention it deserves.
That is correct, yes.
And we had a conversation earlier about understanding that for Deputy City Manager positions and the CFO, that there's generally has been the process, although apparently there's no policy, but there is a process that those are positions in which councillors are, whatever way they're brought forward to select and interview, that has been the process of this council.
They are absolutely council positions, and they must be formally approved by councils. It is my view that in one of those instances, it is a relatively straightforward appointment.
That might be the case, but I know we've had that conversation. I certainly support the appointment, but it's the process. And in the past, that has been the mayor that has, how do you see that process? The mayor or yourself?
It's a city manager established in the bylaw.
City manager established in the bylaw for?
Recommendations to council, which is what
Pardon
we have.
me?
For recommendations to council, which is what we have in front of you today.
Yes, I understand, but the kind of selection process, the getting the panel together, has that not been left up to the mayor, more or less, rather than the city manager or the DCM
No,
at that point?
I have been informed, and I've worked on this process consistently with the deputy city manager colleagues, that we have proceeded in the ordinary way, with the city manager providing advice to council.
No, I'm not talking about that. I know this is advice to council, but to get the candidate selection, the panel that would be selected has often been the mayor selecting the panel.
And I will work with the mayor and the mayor's office to, as we come forward with a panel for the proposed chief financial officer position, to follow precisely that model.
So just to be clear, because I thought we were having some differences, that the process that I'm describing is the panel, putting the panel together, the interviews, of course, everybody's there, but that process is in collaboration with, or often has been my experience, not for the Ford years, but previous to that, was through the mayor's office, because this was put in place in 2009, I think.
And my understanding of these positions are analogous, for example, to the approach we took to fill the position of the city solicitor, and I'm following precisely the same model for the proposed CFO position as we proposed relative to the city solicitor.
And what was that?
To undertake, to create an external review, to undertake a canvassing of the best available candidates. Once we had that, to bring those candidates to a panel of city councillors, and on the basis of that, bring a recommendation forward to council as a whole.
And where's your interaction with the mayor's office in that scenario you just outlined?
I believe I consulted with the mayor's office informally, but it was at the direction following the city bylaw in conjunction with the city manager's office and my colleagues.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. To speak, Councillor Fletcher.
I'm just going to go back in time capsule, to when we had commissioners and we had CAO and we had many different positions that were here. And during a review of the city governance, it was flatlined to have 2 deputy city manager discrete positions, a city manager. It was a management model, not a commissioner model, and that the CFO position and the deputy city manager position were combined. And I support the delinking of those, because all of the work that has been in that deputy city manager position attached to the CFO, I think it is very hard to do your job looking after the how many billion?
16 billion.
16? 60 billion, and making sure everything's in place and deal with all the other matters that are associated with facilities, security, and everything else. So having those 2 positions come apart, I very, very much support that. And I believe in the past, Councillor Carroll has tried to have that happen in the last administration unsuccessfully. So good. That's number 1. Number 2, I just want to reiterate that in all of that senior management team, that council has been involved, because these are the really critical and important positions that we rely on this senior team so much to keep things moving and keep things going. And previous to the last administration, also the mayor, I know, was very involved in the selection of the deputy city manager, because I sat on that particular panel. So I think that perhaps in the last administration things kind of tilted a little bit more to the administration managing those things, and that council perhaps wasn't as involved. And I would like to think, and I think that our city manager is guaranteed that he'll be following a very rigorous process, that we will not have anything brought forward that hasn't gone through that process. Having said that, I definitely support the candidate who is being put forward for deputy city manager 100%, and I understand that we will be beginning this recruitment for the CFO, and I think that, and we have an acting CFO, and we'll start a recruitment for a permanent position. So I just wanted to establish that for people that haven't been here, that haven't been part of this place from the thinking from 2009. Sometimes it's important to look at what that balance is between senior staff and city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so on the item, on favor? Recorded? Okay.
The item is adopted unanimously, 36 in favor.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is at the bottom of page 6, CC 3212, renaming of public properties after former members of council. Councillor Burnside, you held the item down. Do we have any questions? You have a question? Okay.
Through you to staff, June 16th, 2015, there's an updated policy for the naming of streets and properties. Would this motion be in contravention of that policy?
Who's asked? asking.
Through the staff, I don't know who the staff
Who's
would
going to be answering
I
that
can give you the
question?
policy.
Is anybody here that can answer that question?
Exec.
Is it Parks?
From the city
Maybe
manager.
Parks?
I'm going to ask to pause the time. Sorry, and just could you repeat the question? My apologies.
That's no problem. June 16, 2015, EX 7.8, updated policies for naming city streets and properties. There's 3.8.6 would be the specific section. Would this, the current motion be in contravention of that policy adopted by council?
We appreciate the question. We need to take it as notice and we'll be back to you as soon as we possibly can be. We just don't know.
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, that's it for, yeah, but hold on. We have speakers on it first. Mayor Tory to speak.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Sadly, over the past year, we've lost 3 members of Toronto City Council, Pam McConnell, Ron Moser, and former Mayor Rob Ford. And I move this motion to further the process of naming something in our city for each of them. And I realize that there is some debate in some quarters about naming things after people who are holding public office, but I believe in the case of these 3 people, they all served lengthy periods of time in public office, and so the matter of considering such a possibility is entirely proper in these 3 cases. They served for very long periods of time. I will address most of my comments this evening to the recommendation in respect of Rob Ford. The proposal to name the stadium at Centennial Park after former Mayor Rob Ford came at the request of the Ford family following an earlier public consultation process in respect of a park, which in fact I think was suggested by a citizen. As members of council know, Rob Ford was elected as the mayor of the city, died while sitting as an elected member of city council, where he served a total of 12 years as a city councillor, plus the 4 years that he served as mayor. In all of my actions as mayor, and I think people would find it difficult to cite examples otherwise, I try to be generous, to put politics to the side and to do what seems right. I think most of us do most of the time. It's often been a challenging course in a big city, which by definition contains many different groups of people who have different opinions about what the right thing to do would be. And so I told the Ford family, specifically via Rob's mother, Diane Ford, that I would honor their request, which had been made known to me in a number of different ways, by putting a motion forward to council. And it really was within that practice of erring on the side of generosity, and because of the fact, or at least aided by the fact, that I was clearly in possession of the wishes of the Ford family. I also understand, of course, and it really goes with what I was saying, because I guess the council is a microcosm of the population of the city, and there are going to be differing opinions and perspectives among the public and some members of council. And some of you and some members of the public have asked legitimate questions about the very matter of how things should be named in our city and for whom. Mayor Ford had his supporters, those who felt heard and represented and helped by him. This includes many kids who played football, who would feel that he helped them and that he heard them, hence the suggestion of the naming of a football stadium in the very community that he represented. But I also recognize the fact we cannot erase history or gloss over very difficult parts of our city's past, and I know that some of the former mayor's actions and comments while in office were hurtful and disrespectful to some, and inconsistent with the expectations that go with the office that he held. Everybody as mayor, including me, swears to uphold the integrity of the office, and I understand the responsibility that we have as leaders here, especially us, to ensure that all of our citizens are respected and represented and included at all times. I will say that I believe very strongly that the divisive era of city politics in Toronto is now over, and that we are here to represent our residents' interests and their wishes and the best interests, most importantly, of the city as a whole. As I have said publicly, that is why I erred on the side of generosity in bringing this proposal forward, because I believe the era of division in the city was over, as it should be over. But in the same spirit of trying to minimize division, I'm simply standing in my place, Madam Speaker, to encourage each member of this City Council to vote on this motion based on their own assessment of what they think is right and what they believe their residents would wish them to do. To let the people of Toronto, their representatives, and their perspectives guide the decision. I have honored my own commitment to the foreign family, and I've done it in a very genuine way, and I do it in particular with regard to the conversation that I had with Mrs. Diane Ford, Rob's mother, just as I do the same with respect to conversations I've had with people representing the families of Pam McConnell and Ron Moser, so that we could put these matters, for consideration of the Council. I will support all elements of this recommendation, recognizing, as with most things here, it's now a decision we all make together, collectively, on behalf of the people that we represent. And of course, I will respect that decision, as you respect all decisions that are made in this chamber. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Burnside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My remarks are going to be quite short. I do appreciate the generous intent of this motion. Unfortunately, I can't support it. This is obviously a very polarizing debate in regards to Centennial Stadium. However, I think the question is actually bigger than one person. To me, we need to shift our focus and do more to recognize everyday citizens. People who have volunteered hours, days, years of their lives to make our city better. We've done it with a few people, but they're few and far between. So that's my intent. In terms of us as politicians, you know, we make promises. We promise to do a good job. We promise to be passionate, and we promise results. And then we get elected. To me, our recognition is actually getting re-elected. I don't want to be harsh. I'm not trying to, as I say, pass judgment on any single person, and I'm not trying to minimize the accomplishments of anyone. But I think in emotional times when people have passed away, we need to step back, take a breather, have a break, and have a cooling off period so that we can actually make a decision not based on our emotions, positive or negative. I feel that any politician who has, or any individual for that matter, who has had such a significant impact, or who has had a significant impact and been memorable in his or her accomplishments, there will be that appetite 2 or 5 years down the road. I think it's just a little premature to decide on any of the three worthy individuals. But I also think that we really need to concentrate our focus on recognizing everyday citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Cressy, I believe that you asked that we vote on the 2 recommendations separately?
Yes, please.
Okay. So on recommendation 1, recorded vote.
Recommendation 1 does not carry. The vote is 11 to 24.
Recommendation 2.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor Davis.
Recommendation 2 carries 33-2.
Okay. That's it, right? Yeah. Okay, next item is on page 7, MM 32.3. Let's keep going round and round. Councillor Fletcher held the item down. Pardon? Oh, can I have a motion to finish the items? We only have 4 left.
Yes, so moved, Madam Speaker. So moved.
On favor? Carried. Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I think that councillors have the amendment for the carousel. Don't know how much time you'd like to spend on it, to replace the first recommendation, which says to secure the purchase, to instead negotiate an amendment to the license agreement, which ensures that we won't be losing this carousel, and to come back to Government Management Committee on those results.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, do you want to speak? Oh, you have a question? Okay, just 1 sec, please.
I'm actually curious to know, the councillor said that her motion says this guarantees that we won't be losing the carousel. My interpretation of the motion is there's going to be a report back to the Government Management Committee, and that any decision on whether to keep or save that carousel will be a decision of a future decision of this council.
I think that it's the same as a motion that we had earlier today, Councillor Deputy Mayor, which very clearly the will of council is to have a negotiation which maintains the carousel and to use the license agreement.
Yeah, but the decision to keep it or save it, this does not make that decision.
The final decision rests once they come back with the negotiations.
Thank you very much.
But I do believe that it is very clear with the will of council that this council certainly wants to make sure that we don't lose a 110-year-old Densel menagerie carousel with pigs and ostriches and many carved animals that don't exist in any other carousel, being the only one in Canada and on our waterfront. So to me, this isn't a casual, well, see what you can do. It's a casual, bring us back a deal. Bring us back a deal to government management.
I'm going to speak to it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry, hold on. I didn't know there were more questions. Okay. Okay, Councillor Holliday, you have a motion to Councillor Fletcher? I'm sorry. I'm tired. Do you have a question to Councillor Fletcher? Okay, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Holliday, 3 minutes clarification of the motion.
Thank you, Speaker. I don't need 3 minutes. I just want to be sure and clear. Does this motion that you propose, the amendment, does it infer the exchange of money between the city?
You know, it infers
and
sorry, go ahead.
Between the city and Centerville.
I think that the Deputy Mayor was right when this comes back. That's up to our fantastic staff to negotiate what that looks like. Council's making it very clear, we want a deal. What does that look like within the license agreement? They will be recommending something. They may recommend money. They may not. Who knows what it would be, a covenant on it? I'm not sure, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
What happened to
Councillor Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have real problems with this. I'm not supporting it, and I'll tell you why. So this is one of these motions that comes on our table, and you think, it's a harmless thing, there's no real impact on it, and that's the problem with a lot of these things that come through this council. So there are consequences. Let's say this thing, that is going to cost us a sum of money. Let's say it's going to cost us $1 million, because we knew that there was an offer on the table for $3 million. The very awkward question that we don't ask ourselves enough in this place is, what is it that we're giving up for that $1 million? And I will tell you that my residents have not said to me, you know what? We've got enough affordable housing. We don't need that. Let's say it's $1 million, so we can buy a Carousel instead. We don't need more transit. I'd like to buy a merry-go-round for the city instead. We don't need to fix our roads anymore because we have so much money, we should buy a merry-go-round. That's the discussion that we're having today. That's the awkward discussion. Well, actually, that's the discussion that we're not having today. My residents haven't told me that you have license to go and buy a merry-go-round. That day has not come to this council. We've got a lot of other priorities, and we shouldn't be doing this. We should not be doing this. It is the wrong thing to do. We don't buy frills. And if there's one example that, I mean, there's no better example that I could think of than buying a merry-go-round and an amusement park ride. Well, anyway, I'm not supporting this. If somebody wishes to save this merry-go-round, so be it. Maybe we can help find sponsors. Maybe we can find someone who wants to buy it. But we should not be spending taxpayers' dollars on this.
We have the motion by Councillor Fletcher. Well, you already spoke. No, I answered a question. No, you moved the motion. Councillor Fletcher, you were first to speak. You moved the motion. Okay. So on the motion by Councillor Fletcher, do you want a recorded vote? Okay. I know I'm a little tired, but I remember you speaking.
Councillor Perruzza, Councillor DiGiorgio, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong Tam, please.
Councillor Mihevc, please.
Councillor McMahon, please. Councillor Perruzza.
The motion carries 27-7.
And that's it.
Now, Councillor Matlow's motion for Broadway has been circulated. So, Councillor Matlow, you just want to move it?
Yeah, I just want to thank. I'd like
you
to.
can speak. You're up.
I'm sorry, I was just being interrupted. No, I just want to thank both our city solicitor and our truly remarkable acting chief planner, along with my staff, for the assistance that they provided. It was really good work. Thank you. Thank you. This is good. So I move. Pardon me. So I move what I read earlier, just to save some time, but it's in front of us.
It's on the screen, yes, and we did get copies of it. All in favor on TE 2625? On the amendment, all in favor? Carried. Item as amended, record. Okay. Recorded vote. Recorded vote. Yeah.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor DiGiorgio, thank you. Councillor Davis.
The motion carries unanimously, 32 in favor.
Okay, thank you. Page 7, MM 3210. Okay, can I have some quiet, please? An agreement with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong, you held the item down. Pardon? Just vote on it? You're releasing it? On favor? Carried. Our next one is on page 7, MM 3220, supporting a Muslim youth fellowship program. Councillor Thompson.
Speaker, the concerns I had have been addressed by both the city manager and others, and Councillor Shannon and I have resolved, I guess, the issues. The report will come forward later, so I can release it.
Okay, thank you. Page 7, MM 3224, giving, oh, on favor? On favor? Carried. Yes?
Vision Zero, they're both Vision Zero. I literally need 1 minute to move these.
Well, yes, and those are the last two.
They are.
Yes.
So could I bundle them? Because
So MM 3224 and MM 3241.
We did that.
Yes. Okay? Go ahead, Councillor Robinson.
So just, you'd like me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to be very quick. We've advanced circulated motions, and you'll see that before you. The first one is 24, so it's on blue paper in front of you. And if you didn't know, in November, staff are bringing forward a report to Public Works Committee with an update status report on the Vision Zero Road Safety Plan. What I'm doing is including these requests, both the blue and the green, which I can only do the blue right now, from Councillor Wong Tam and Councillor Fletcher to be included as part of this upcoming report. So that is before you, 32.24 first.
Okay. So on MM 3224, we do have the motion. It's a blue one. On favor? Carried. Item is amended. On favor? Carried. Okay. On 3241?
On what I just said for this one. 32.41, we have this upcoming report, status report, which is very, very timely, and we're going to include these requests in that.
Okay, so on MM 3241, we have the motion on the screen, recorded vote.
Yeah, but it's...
Councillor Perks, please. Councillor Madlow. Councillor Perruzza. Councillor DiGiorgio. Councillor Hart, please.
Whatever you want. Yeah, we're referring it. My mic's still on.
The referral motion carries unanimously, 32 in favor.
Okay. Our next item is Members' Motion 3255 by Councillor Shiner and second by Councillor Hart. It's there on the screen. All in favor? Carried. Our next one is MM 3256 by Councillor Fragadakis and second by Councillor Filion. Recorded vote.
Councillor Mihevik, please.
Great. It was really well presented and, well, it was close at least, but it was Denzel. Denzel must have been asleep at the switch. And then we didn't have Shiner, we didn't have Pasternak, we didn't have Holland, we didn't have Cole. So we would have easily won. We would have easily won.
Councillor Lee, please. Councillor McMahon. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong, please.
The motion carries 29 to 1.
Before I ask for motion to enact the general bills, may I have a motion regarding the considerations of submissions on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments? Councillor Al-Jamari.
That committee and council considered submissions in making this a decision on zoning bylaw and official plan amendment.
All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Layton,
Yes, thank you.
you have a motion to introduce certain bills.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, that leave be granted to introduce bills 983 to 1050, 1052 to 1110, and 1112 to 1119 inclusive.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? Recorded vote.
So for the
Careful there, Burnside. You almost took out security.
Councillor Mihevik,
Councillor
please.
Perks, please. Councillor Perruzza.
Councillor Robinson, please. Councillor Crawford, thank you.
Motion to introduce the bills carries unanimously, 31 in favor.
Shall these bills be passed and declared as a bylaw? Recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong-Tam. Councillor Davis, please.
Councillor Grimes, please.
Okay.
Councillor Perks, how do you vote, please? We close the vote.
The motion to enact the bills carries 30 to 1.
Okay, members of council, please stay in your seats. We still have more votes. Deputy Mayor, come on, we're not finished. Councillor Fragadakis, you have a motion to introduce the confirming bill.
Yes, that leave be granted to introduce a bill to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion the proceedings of City Council Meeting 32 on October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2017.
Shall leave be granted to introduce this bill? Recorded vote.
Councillor Ainsley. Councillor Ford, please. Thank you. Councillor Fragadakis. Councillor Mihevik, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor McMahon. Councillor Davis, please. Councillor Carroll, please. Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
I know you have trouble with numbers.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm a rookie at this. The motion to introduce the confirming bylaw passes by a stunning 32-0. Ta-da!
Hold on, we have one more vote. Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw? Recorded vote.
Councillor Mihevc, please. Councillor Fletcher. Thank you.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
Apparently, the last vote wasn't so stunning, but this one is. The confirming bylaw bill. The motion to enact the confirming bill passes by 32-0. Yay!
Okay, members of council, thank you, and thank you to staff. Thank you, and thank you, Rob. This meeting is adjourned.